You ever notice black choirs don't have notes? You ever wonder why that was? Because they were in slavery and they couldn't read. So they memorized hymns. And they sang while they were in chains. And they sang for freedom. Hello? You know why the caged birds sing?
Many people wanted to know the message of his sermon in regards to why he's talking about why do black people sing, even though they couldn't read. He talks about the young lady named Nightbird, who was on America's Got Talent in 2022, and how she had cancer. And she made a wonderful, beautiful song called Okay. And that even within her cancer, and that even though she wasn't able to compete and she ended up passing away, that you got to sing even during your trials. You got to find joy even during your trials. So why does the caged bird sing? Because it's singing for the freedom, it's singing out of joy, no matter what his situation is. But I had some problems with him using the situation of slavery and Christianity as a form that black people were able to sing to this God and find joy. Because it is, I hate using the term, but it is whitewashing the hell out of the black slave experience in America and Christianity. Why did black people sing during slavery? Well, one of the reasons why black people sang during slavery was to communicate a message to the other black people when they were going to escape, when they were going to revolt. We sang and we danced in order to promote our freedom and promote our escaping from the clutches of the slave master. There was, I forgot his name, and somebody's going to find it. Look it up and tell me what the name is. There was an Angolan warrior, and he utilized dancing as an expression of communicating a message for when they was going to revolt. I think it's called the Stoners Revolt, Stoners Rebellion. But he utilized dance, line dancing, as a matter of fact, as a method to communicate how we were going to escape. In Brazil, they used capoeira as a way to train for combat, as a way to train for also letting people know when they were going to escape and when they were going to rebel. So why did we sing? Yeah, some people sang out of the misery that they were in, but many sang because they were meeting down by the riverside. If you don't know, the whole song of Down by the Riverside is a code for escaping when we're leaving, when we're going to get ourselves out of this situation. So black people weren't just sitting up here singing out of the joy that the slave master now beat the hell out of them and beat Christianity into their mental ideas, beat it into their spirit, have taken away their culture, their religion, their gods, taking them away from their lands and taking the lands from them. And they were just so joyful and waiting for God to free them, to release them. No. We sang for our own escapes. We sang to communicate with one another. And as far as black people not being able to read, did he not forget? Is a difference between not being able to read and not being allowed to read. You can still find on some ledgers, some legislations where slaves were not permitted to learn how to read, where it was a public offense, it was a crime if you were to allow your slave to learn how to read. And for the few that were allowed to learn how to read, and especially when it came to the Bible, there was only certain sections of the Bible that you could read. There was only certain parts of the Bible that you could preach. And all the sections and parts of the Bible that you were allowed to read and preach were those that kept the slave a slave. Yes, many Christians don't want to admit that. But the Bible was engineered during slavery to make sure that you only read things like slaves be good to your masters, whether they are good or bad. Those were the parts. Leviticus 25, where it says that the foreigner can be made into a slave and owned as property and passed down to their sons. Exodus 20, where You can beat a slave. Yeah, those parts were allowed. But the entire story of Exodus, not so much. Not so much. Didn't want you reading about getting freedom. Mm-mm. Didn't want you to read about rebelling. Didn't want you to read Joshua. Joshua was not allowed to be read because Joshua spoke of people killing the other people and taking the land. Can't read that part. So no, it's not a slaves couldn't read. Slaves weren't allowed to learn to read. And even in today's world, those who are being oppressed in any country, literacy is always something held away from those who are oppressed. When I was growing up, South African apartheid was the big issue, one of the big issues of the world. And one of the main things that was done in order to maintain South African apartheid was to say that in order for your child to go to school, you have to pay for that child to have a uniform and buy their books. This kept the overwhelming majority of Black people in South Africa from being able to become literate. Because any dominating force knows that literacy is a way to freedom. Literacy is a way to change your state of being, a way to overthrow. This is not only done against Black people or people of color. This is how the French monarchy kept the French people from being able to revolt against them, is through campaigns to keep them illiterate. The British, or I should say the English, did a similar thing to the Scottish and the Irish, keeping them illiterate so that they couldn't gather together, so that they couldn't have ideas, so that they couldn't understand the history of people rebelling, conquesting, going against their adversaries, and becoming a free people. So literacy has always been used as a weapon. So that we sing because people were filled with the joy of this God and the hope of this God. Some. But we sang to communicate. We sang to rebel. We sang to gain our freedom. So don't sit back, as this pastor will have you, thinking that no matter what you're going through, just sing a song. Just step and fetch and sing a song. And God one day gonna free you. That's the supremacy bullshit of the Bible. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.